Peace to Mother of Peace, the founder of WFWP, Women's Federation for World Peace. Gonna be Mr. Hennings.
Yeah.
Everybody knows him, huh? Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Hennings. Mr. Hennings is a man of many traits. He has worked in the mailroom, being door-to-door salesman,
Yeah.
captain a tuna boat, programmed text software, pastored a church in Los Angeles, held seminars for clergy, and he has taught in the public schools for 2 years in South Central Los Angeles. And also 12 years on the reservation at the San Carlos High School.
Yeah.
Okay. So his hope today is to return some of the love he has felt from all of you who are attending here today. So he's going to present something wonderfully, and it's called From Mother of Peace to the Mother of Peace, the founder of Women's Federation for World Peace.
Thank you.
And let's turn off the light. You want me to turn off the light still? Or we good?
Yeah, that probably would help, because you can see it isn't as bright as I'd hoped.
Okay, so we're good then.
But I should say though, you all look wonderful, so beautiful. I mean, this is like a fulfillment of a dream. And specifically, I'm very grateful for your coming here. I'm grateful for the chance to do something to overcome what I call, historical trauma.
Yeah.
In other words, people have war and suffering and an injustice, and this perpetuates, and it doesn't just go away
No.
when we stop the overt violence. And so I really, representing your culture, you're wearing something so beautiful. I actually am wearing a ribbon shirt that was made by one of our, maybe she's still on the way, one of our guests here today, but Ms. Johnson's here, and I felt so loved when I attended a tribal conference, and they allowed me to be adopted into as a member of the Haudenosaunee, right? Which is really my pride and joy. I'm so grateful. But I think the beauty of the future that we want, a future of reconciliation, a future of peace, we need to be able to cross barriers. And it doesn't happen automatically. It happens when people reach out in love and demonstrate a lot of love. So I just want to kind of review how this thing got started, because it's a wonderful idea to cross the bridge of peace and to gain a sister, and to have that kind of vision for friendship, sisterhood. I think it's something about women actually are able to understand, maybe more than men, about loving and caring and raising up people. And so I'd like to just explain I call this slide From Historical Trauma to Bridges of Peace. So if we think about the Korean situation, Mrs. Moon was actually part of the Korean situation. Grew up in North Korea, came to South Korea as a refugee. And if we think about what happened there, it sounds kind of familiar. The king wore his hair in a sangtu. In other words, it's a long, long hair, right? And it's wound up. Anyway, it's a sign of manhood. It's a rite of passage. You can never be really a man unless you have a sangtu. And what they did is, at some point, his sangtu was cut. They cut his hair to shame him, right? And tens of thousands of people were martyred because they would not accept Shintoism, which had the idea the emperor is the child of the sun god, right? And cultural artifacts were removed. The language was forbidden. They would be punished if they spoke their language, right? Everyone had to learn and speak Japanese. Crops were destroyed, taken to feed Japanese soldiers. Their land was taken, and their homes were taken. And there were thousands of what are called comfort women, which now Japan they've apologized for and tried to make some kind of reparation for comfort women that were raped by imperial soldiers, thousands. So this is a way that bitter hatred and resentment happens, right?
Yeah.
This is a way that people are destroyed. So we can say also, it's not foreign to America, right?
Mhm.
So if we think about it deeply, we need to really think about people suffering. The reservations were actually prisons, right?
Mhm.
And we don't have to read too much or study too much to find out that these wars, sometimes it was a massacre, right? Like, for example, if you read about Fort Grant, you can understand that 180 people died there, and only 8 of them were men. It was, the men were out harvesting, and the women were, and children were killed.
Mm.
So, and what I'm saying is, this leaves problems, right? We think about this experience of Black Americans, often no human rights, lynchings, torture, murder. These things, as a result, is bitterness and hatred.
Sure.
So how do we reverse this? How do we end historical trauma? How do we become renewed and end this cycle of constant conflict and resentment? And one way has been proposed as the Bridge of Peace ceremony, a ceremony of reconciliation. So the first one took place in 1994. Not just one ceremony, but over a year. 160,000 women went from Japan to Korea, and they experienced this crossing the bridge. And as you can see, the wife of the former president crossed the bridge. And former president said, perhaps if the president of America and Japanese leader had crossed the Bridge of Peace 50 years ago, the war between Japan and America may never have happened.
Might be.
So these things were taking place, more than 20,000 in America, all across the country. And wherever there's a division, it needs to be overcome with the power of love. Sowing the seeds of love, that's where we want to be. So anyway, Women's Federation for World Peace, these ceremonies were taking place in all the major cities. History is calling for reconciliation, compassion, love, service, and sacrifice. Today's problems cannot be solved by the logic of power, but the logic of love. And a lot of what Women's Federation for World Peace is about is the logic of love. So even though her nation was taken by communism, Miss Ha Cha-han-moon had to flee her native North Korea on foot at the age of 7 with her mother. Although she strongly opposes communism, they wind up actually being invited to meet with Kim Il-sung and embrace Kim Il-sung, the very person who caused, in a sense, so much loss of life, so much suffering in North Korea. So same thing with Mikhail Gorbachev. They were invited by President Gorbachev, and they discussed about openness, like glasnost and perestroika. And actually, I had a chance myself to work with some of the 3,000 students who came from different areas of Russia and came to see America, and not just see America, but to kind of cross this bridge of resentment and hatred to be released, and to work together to see a future where Russia and America could be friends and not enemies. So anyway, President Gorbachev. So by modeling piece, my modeling piece, she began to do programs everywhere. As Glenda said, the Women's Federation for World Peace is an NGO with consultative status. They work in Africa, they work all across the world. Oh, thank you. And thank you. And anyway, I sent a link. I sent a link out so that you can get the newsletter. If you go to WFWP.com, you can get the newsletter, and you can see all the different schools that are opening and different work that's being done all around the country. But I think today, is a historical day
Amen.
because you're here,
Yeah.
right? And you're planting the seeds of love. That's the only way that change can happen. And so I'm just really thankful for your presence. I'm thankful for your ability to just to be a person of heart that can transcend the barriers that have caused so much grief in the past. So we're shaping a new future. Glenda later on will talk about an action step we're doing. We're gonna do a little book study and things like that. But right now, let's focus on the Bridge of Peace.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henning. That's also a wonderful presentation. And this is going to be the scene where we're going to start in Globe. Now, the next person we're going to ask to perform for us is the Lauren Frost. Are you ready? Ready?